Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network, where curiosity meets conversation. Get enlightened and have fun. Share the experience with friends, family, and anyone ready for thought-provoking dialogue. You can watch our shows on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, or connect with us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts are also available on Libsyn, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other major platforms. Be sure to visit our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, upcoming shows, and guest scheduling. And to our listeners around the cosmos, welcome. We're glad you're here. Subscribe, follow, and join the community.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, everybody, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's The Seance Podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mackes. If this is your first time tuning in, please click subscribe, like, comment, share, and also don't forget to follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, we are going to learn how to build resilience and thrive in an ever-changing world. Today, we are welcomed by Laura Hoorweg, a gifted spiritual counselor, intuitive coach, and psychic medium. Known for her accuracy, compassion, and soul-level clarity, Laura helps people release what holds them back, reconnect with their true purpose, and step into a life of strength and alignment. Her grounded yet metaphysical approach blends emotional truth with intuitive insight, guiding clients to real transformation. Let's welcome to the seance for the first time, Laura Hoorweg. Welcome, my friend.
I love the applause.
Right? Yeah. I always have to throw that in there. Always. Just livens everything up. At the age of 11 and 15, you've had some interesting turning points in your life. Let's go back in time and explain a little bit about that to our audience.
When I was about 10 or 11, all of a sudden I just had this urge to find out where I could meet God and the angels. And not being of a religious family at all, but still being a Judeo-Christian tradition, I just thought, okay, God and the angels are at church. So nobody was going to take me to church. It was great because in my neighborhood, there was like at least a half a dozen churches that were basically in walking distance from my home. So every Sunday for quite some time, I put on, because back in the day, you put on your Sunday best to go to church. So I put on my little skirt, my patent leather shoes, and off I went. And it was interesting because I went to a Catholic church and a Baptist church and a Salvation Army church and all different Anglican church, all different churches. And what I discovered was there was lots of nice people there and some of them not so nice. And the big thing I discovered is the fact that God and the angels were not there. So as I went into my teens and preteens, I was very much into hiking and camping and canoe tripping and all that kind of thing. So what I really found was that my connection, my temple, my cathedral was in nature, in the wilderness. So that's where I really made my connection to spirit. And then when I was about 15, that's the segue.
Yeah.
Okay. When I was about 15, excuse me, I was rock climbing and rappelling. And we had taken a break and I was standing on the top of a very high cliff out in the middle of the wilderness. And all I could see was beautiful lakes and trees and rivers and no sign of human habitation whatsoever. And I just had this experience. And all of a sudden it was like whoosh. And I was out of my body. And I found myself above my compatriots, looking down on them and looking down at myself standing out on this cliff. And I was just like, there was no fear. There was no feelings of dread or anything. I just felt incredibly expanded, but I still felt like myself. And I just thought, wow, this is great. And then I was just getting used to that feeling, and all of a sudden that whoosh came again. And all of a sudden I looked down and I was above the earth, and I was looking literally at the entire earth as it was turning.
Yeah.
And I'm going to date myself, but I grew up when I was very young. That was when the first moon landings and everything happened. And I remember listening to one of the astronauts who was interviewed, and he had said what a profound experience that was to, for the first time, to look down on the earth. And that's exactly the kind of experience that I had. And again, I wasn't afraid. I felt part of everything. I felt tremendously expanded. And it was like, the only thing I can probably compare it to is probably the way a baby feels in the womb. Like you're very protected and you're very comfortable and you're very warm and you feel very safe. And I was just like, I was even more blown away. And all of a sudden, just as I was getting used to that feeling, whoosh again. And I found myself out in the universe looking at different galaxies. And I knew right away, seeing our spiral galaxy, I knew that was the Milky Way, and I could tell where our little blue planet was. And there was all this knowledge that just came to me. And I was, okay, so at this point, I was like, wow, what's going to happen next? And just when I thought, what's going to happen next, all of a sudden it was like something grabbed me and I was just pulled like in split second back into my body. And I always say it was a tremendous feeling because it was like taking a basketball and trying to stuff it into a Coke bottle.
Wow.
Because it was so expanded that putting my energy back into my body was very difficult. And it actually took me 3 or 4 days to actually feel comfortable in my body again. And what had actually happened in the regular 3D, which I found out afterwards, was one of the climbing instructors had gotten a little worried because he felt that I was a little too close to the edge of the cliff.
Yeah.
And he really grabbed the back of my pants and yanked me back. And that's when I returned back into my body. So who knows what would have happened next if that particular thing hadn't happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. I'm wondering how much time elapsed between the time you left and the time that you got, probably just maybe
seconds,
even though
literally
it felt like
seconds.
eons of time.
It felt like a lot. I would say it felt like a couple of hours, for sure, to me, but it was literally seconds, and it was pretty wild. And that totally changed my entire view of life, of death, of who we really were, because of course I was out of my body and I was still alive. It wasn't like I was dead. So it gave me a very different view of what we really were. And I think that's what solidified my idea that we were simply not our bodies, but we were spirit. And that was the real essence of who we were. And that really underlined that for me at a very young age.
Wow. I've had something, not at the Grand, I was at the Grand Canyon once. My mom's afraid of heights. And when I don't know what it's like now, but then they didn't have handrails. So you could just walk right up to the edge.
Yeah.
She's afraid of heights. She's like, get back now. But yeah, and with that's not when I had my out of body experience, but it was actually during a motorcycle accident. And I was pulled out of the body just so I didn't have to endure the pain and the trauma of it. And just waking up afterwards, just in the ambulance. So I don't know what was painful, the ambulance ride there. I think that was probably the most painful.
I thought people have asked me, was that like an NDE, like a near-death experience? And I've near similar to you several times in accidents and things like that. And it's very different. It has some of the same components, but it's not the same thing. Yeah. Because in an NDE, your soul is actually going to the other side. And that's not what really happened. Actually, I think what happened to me would probably be best described like astral traveling.
Yeah, astral projection, astral travel.
Yeah.
Wow. So how do people build this deep connection with their own intuitive guidance?
That entails really getting in touch with yourself. And there's a myriad of ways, but the ways that I work mostly personally and with my clients, because I found it works really well. One, you have to get into yourself, into your own feelings, into your own mind. And there's nothing that does that better than meditation. And it doesn't matter. There's all different forms of meditation. Some work better for and others find different ways. I always suggest to people, if they're beginning, is guided meditation is a really good place to start, because old-fashioned TM and silent meditation is very hard for people. But I still do guided meditation because for me, that's the ticket. The other side of that, getting in touch with yourself, and this is something that a lot of people don't realize, is getting in touch with your body. Okay. And because there's so much that, even though we are soul and spirit and the body, there's a reason we're in physical bodies, because a lot of things are funneled. Even when I do my psychic work or my mediumship work, a lot of things are actually cycled through the body. And if you're not in touch with your body, it's pretty hard to be in touch with yourself. Okay. And again, one of the best ways I've found for people for not only being body aware, but also healing, is yoga. And again, many different types of yoga to suit many different types of people. But other things work really well or in conjunction. Dance, any forms of the martial arts, just being out in nature and being next to the earth or in the water. That's another way to really get in touch with your body. So there's a lot of different methods, but you can combine any or all of them. But it's really about knowing yourself. And the thing is, it's also about releasing what we've been told. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we come in as, I'm just going to use the word virgin souls. Okay. We know we've planned before we've come to this lifetime of what we want to do, who we're going to be, what relationships we want to have. And then we get here. Okay. And then everybody convinces us that we're somebody else. Okay. Whether it's parents, family, school, media, religions, cultures, they all tell us who we should be. Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of who we actually are. So that's a big thing. And actually just shedding and releasing some of that old programming is the biggest start to that. And you can do that both physically and through the meditation and through the other thing that really helps people is breath work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And that can be combined with both meditation and yoga. They've all knit into each other. And even like a lot of the different forms, some of the gentler forms, particularly of martial arts, like Qi and that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Tai Chi, Qigong.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll also notice too that art, if anybody's got that creative
Yes.
aspect to them, whether you like to paint, draw, photograph, anything that takes your mind off of everything that the stage around us, the theater around us, and focusing in on our passions is a good
Well,
form of
that puts
mission.
you in the other side of your brain too. That
Yeah.
puts you in the creative, nurturing side of your brain rather than the analytical side. And that's what you want. That's where the connection's made. And the more you are connected, that's why you'll hear artists, whether it's a musician or whether it's a painter, they'll tell you that they didn't really compose this song. It came to them. Or it was even sometimes these days, because people are getting more comfortable with the word, they'll say, oh, I channeled this. Or if you speak to writers, they'll say, I didn't really write this book. It was given to me. It was channeled to me. And I just sat down and basically hit the keys and recorded it.
Yeah.
I didn't really write it. So that is truly a connection to your higher self when you're in that creative mode.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just a lot of artists that always, and not only that, even some of the scientists out there. Nikola Tesla, quite a few times, even journaled it and said, yeah, all this stuff I'm seeing, all this technology I channeled from another galaxy, another race of beings and stuff. And it's like, yeah.
It's really funny because people always ask me about my spiritual journey. And your spiritual journey goes like this. It's not a straight line. And at when I was in my, I would say 30s and early 40s, I was very scientifically bent. And in my 30s, especially early 30s, I started finding all these books, which were incredible books about spirituality. And guess who wrote them? Physicists. Okay.
Yeah.
There's an old book that I often refer people to, and it's called The Seed of the Soul. And it was written, I'm sure it's probably still in print. It's an old book. It was probably written in the late 80s or early 90s or something like that. But it was written by Gary Zukav, and he was a physicist. And, there's a lot of these books, and even today, there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of scientists who are talking about receiving all kinds of information from other sources. Some of them don't really go into what those sources are, but they'll admit that it's something that's not coming from the 3D world.
Yeah. And I'm starting to see, too, that even the scientific community, like CERN and these physicists and astrophysicists and cosmologists and stuff like that, they're starting to talk a little bit more about that, bringing in the metaphysical aspect and spiritual.
Well, and it's because what's really done it is the new quantum physics, because the quantum physics are actually proving all these different things, all these different spiritual concepts that we've known for years, in some cases thousands of years.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, saying, you take one for example, is multi-dimensionality and the dimensions and the different universes. I think the scientists now are up to admitting that there's 13. But I've been told there's a lot more than that. But that would have been unheard of even 10 years ago for them to be admitting that there was, and they've actually proven it through quantum physics that they can prove up to 13 is the last time I heard. But who knows? They might have gone further than that now.
Imagine if Galileo was still alive today. He'd be like just happy. He'd be like, finally.
Yeah.
I mean, he was persecuted for what he was talking about. Now it's just becoming regular.
I know, and it's every time a new it's funny, I was watching a podcast about this the other night, and every time a new concept in science, somebody brings something new forth and it challenges the old belief system, these people are just demonized. They've got people trying to revoke their credentials and kill their grants, and oh my goodness, there's a whole bunch of this stuff going on now with this what is it, this new comet that's not really a comet. Atlas, the Atlas comet.
Avi Loeb. Avi Loeb. Avi Loeb's been mainstream the entire time. Now he's going, you know something? I don't care about the money. I don't care about the work. I am putting all of my time in on this. I want to know what it is for me.
He's getting away. I'm glad he's doing it, because he's getting away with a lot that a lot of other scientists aren't, because he's so well known. He's Harvard, all those things. And I'm sure he's still getting attacked, but some of the lesser people who don't have that huge reputation like he does, they're really paying for it. It's actually ridiculous. Because the whole thing of science is that you're supposed to challenge. Well, that's part of the scientific method, but no, that's not what's happening.
Like the people who don't know about science truly don't know about science. That's what it's all about. Is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Until you can base it that this is how this is operating. Look at the original main model, or the standard model of relativity. Nothing or the model of the universe. Nothing compared to what Einstein originally threw out until quantum physics came around. It's like, whoa, now everything operates completely different.
Yep. I know, and it's just I don't know. I think that's part of human nature, is humans hate change. And anything that kind of threatens their little comfort zone, oh, we're not going there.
Yeah.
Even people, how shall I say this? Even people that are more open-minded when it comes to metaphysical and spiritual things and that, even them, you bring anything kind of new comes into the picture and they're like, oh, no, that's and I remember actually, because I was part of it way back when, but the old New Age movement, oh my God, it was just like, really? You've basically taken religiosity and you've moved it, and now you're calling it the New Age movement. But it's just, you're just as bad as some of these people. It is, because I remember being
Yeah.
told, because at the time I smoked, I remember being told by numerous people that I couldn't possibly be spiritual because I smoked.
Wow.
And then you hit another group, and if you weren't at least a vegetarian, then you couldn't be spiritual either. If you actually had an omnivorous diet, you couldn't be spiritual. And if you wore the wrong clothes, this is how bad it got at one point. There was a certain way of dressing, and if you didn't subscribe to that particular fashion sense, then you couldn't possibly be spiritual.
Yes,
It makes
especially
me
the
laugh.
type of clothing. Because probably remember this was, I forgot what decade it was, but there was a while there that people were calling Stevie Nicks like a Wiccan or a witch because she always wore black.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's
Yeah,
wearing
it's,
black. She must be a witch.
yeah, it's just, or it's the same thing. If you didn't dress like boho, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you didn't wear the flowing cotton clothes and you weren't very colorful, or you didn't wear a lot of white, you couldn't possibly be spiritual. You don't look spiritual. Oh my God, you have a suit on. How could you possibly be? It's all the stereotypes that we have,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. What is your format for holistic self-care in our current world?
one of the biggest things is, okay, first off, detaching yourself a bit from the world. Like, you
Mm.
have to draw some really strong boundaries these days, especially with the way the news works. And I was in the news business for 30 years, so I know all about this. But for myself, I'll use myself as an example. I haven't watched the news, picked up a newspaper, I'm very careful about what I bring into my sphere,
Yeah.
because people don't realize the energy that you're in, not just news, but also people. Okay, that's the other thing. You have to watch, because everything is energy, and you really have to be very awake and aware of what you're allowing around you, inside you, and what you're taking in, because there's just so much negative energy now, and there's already so many things. It doesn't mean you stick your head in the sand. Okay, a lot of people think this is what I'm talking about, and that's not what I'm talking about. Actually, what I did when I stopped watching the news is I said to Spirit, I said to my guides and my angels, if there's anything I need to know, make sure that I'm aware of it. And you'd be amazed how that works. Okay.
Yeah.
But sitting in front of the TV, or even listening to radio or reading newspapers, trust me, having all that negative energy, and most of it's not true, by the way. Okay.
Yeah.
Most of it is just sensationalism. There was, and it's not so old. If it bleeds, it leads.
Yep.
That was a truism. And it's always, I think there hasn't been real news since probably the days of Walter Cronkite. Okay, that's when the real news went away. And I call it infotainment.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Or even worse, blatant editorialism, which they're calling news.
Yeah.
Okay.
That and punditry.
Yeah, news is about facts and what actually happened. It's not about editorializing it and pushing your own beliefs and on everyone else, which is what's basically happening today.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of it isn't even true.
True. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel too, it's made to how negative most of it is to get us riled up and to get us to
Yeah.
live in a state of fear, because living in that state of fear, that negative energy,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
a
then
negative
you're wide
fuel.
open. You're
Yeah.
wide open, because it's really giving away your power. When you're
Mhm.
living in a state of fear, it's giving, because you'll believe almost anything in order to make yourself feel safe. So
Yep.
this is the problem. And that, when you talk about holistic care, that's a huge part of it. Okay. The other part is looking after your physical body, because remember, I told you how important your physical body is to you as well. And the other thing is taking care of your mental emotional state. This is why things like being in nature, meditation, It's really stress management. If you want, it really comes down to stress management and life balance. Because the other thing is, we are pushed again and again to be these robots and workaholics and work 24/7. And if you're not pushing hard, you're just not making it. And this emphasis on money and time, and you shouldn't be having a vacation. You should be working. And even during the day, like taking breaks, eating, people are working through their lunch hours, and it's a thing. And then we wonder why everybody's so burnt out.
Yeah. I tell people, try it for at least first, if they can. Try it for at least one day. Just unplug. Do not watch any news. Stay off of social media altogether. Maybe just check immediate text messages from family. Other than that, just unplug completely and see what your energy feels like by the end of the day.
Well, I think the big thing is to remember that these things, I'm holding up my phone, these things are tools, okay? We have to remember to use it as a tool as opposed to a babysitter, a constant companion. I just can't. Okay, I'll give you an example which absolutely, it amazed me and it broke my heart at the same time. A few months ago, I was out having dinner with a friend, and I looked over to a table that was kitty corner from us, and there was a young family, a husband and wife, and their little girl. She probably was maybe 6 or 7 years old. The two parents were sitting there on their phones. Okay. They were totally ignoring each other. Okay.
Wow.
And this little girl, I watched her, and she was doing everything in her power to get her parents' attention, and they were ignoring her as well. And I just looked at this scene and I thought, oh my God, is this what we've come to? That here they are, they're supposed to be out for a family dinner. They're not talking to each other, not even as a couple, and they're totally ignoring their child. Hello? And that's what I mean about becoming addicted to these different things, whether it's your phone, whether it's your laptop, whether it's the TV, or people spending endless hours on Netflix and Prime and stuff like that, just watching episode after. It's one thing if you just want to chill for a day, an afternoon, or you're sick or something like that. But I'm talking about people doing this on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah. God, yeah,
it's very scary.
Gee, that is scary. Very.
Yeah. And that's not just one incident, by the way. And the other thing I see people doing, which is very scary, is people walking around with their face in their phone, and they're walking across the street. They're walking through traffic. They're doing all these things. Like so many people, I'm like, oh my God, like really?
Yeah.
Do you want to die?
Complete loss. Yeah. Complete loss of situational awareness.
Yes.
And then they get hit and they want to sue somebody. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And my thing too, it's one thing to be an adult and making bad choices, but what also scares me is the kids. Okay, this is another incident that I just couldn't believe. I was walking in one of my local parks, and I saw two young kids, I don't know, 12, 13 maybe, sitting beside each other on a bench, and they're both on their phones. Okay, and I can see them from a long way away. And I'm watching these kids, and I'm realizing as I get closer and closer, these kids are texting each other. Okay? And they're literally sitting side by side. And I walked up to them. I said, what are you doing? And they said, oh, we're texting each other. And I said, yeah, I can see that. But do you realize you're also sitting right beside each other? Why don't you just have a conversation? And their answer was, it's not as much fun.
What?
Yes.
I've realized
like
I've had discussions with some like behavioralists and counselors and stuff like that for work with children.
Yeah.
They're like the newer generations they have no social skills.
No. And that's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're always talking to each other online. And this is why the bullying, back in my day, there's always been bullies. But now with this anonymity online. Like, people will say things online and in text that they would never dream of saying in person.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is why these poor kids are just being absolutely gutted.
Yeah.
Because these kids have no barriers whatsoever, because in most cases, they're anonymous.
Yeah. They haven't been able to build up that thick skin being bullied in school and stuff like that.
There's no escape.
Yeah.
Because look at the way it used to be. If somebody was bullying you or something, you always had the option to walk away, to not be around them, to go and physically go and tell somebody and say, hey, this person is really trying to beat me up or whatever it is. But now, once somebody has access to your phone,
Oof.
they can send you all kinds of horrible messages and pictures and God knows what, right?
Yeah.
So it's really bad for the kids.
Yeah.
And they're losing that interaction. And it's no wonder that these young people aren't dating. And I heard some stories of, I don't know if I want to get into this, but of people being well into their 30s and still being virgins.
Wow.
Okay. Like, this is not a comment on sex. This is a comment on people aren't interacting. When you wonder why the birth rate is plummeting, that would be a good reason.
Very
You know?
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very scary
That
because they don't know
segues.
how to date.
Yeah. Yeah. That segues into the next question: is where do you see humanity going after the next decade or
Oh,
two?
okay. I tell you, we're right in the middle of a major transition. And some people are going to glide through it. It's really going to depend on where you are as individuals. And even within couples or within families, there's going to be certain people that come through this transition with flying colors, and it's not going to be as difficult for them. Then there's people who's going to be very difficult. And it's really over the next 5 years.
Wow.
Okay, I'll give you an example. My team, my guides, back in about 2020. So they told me that in the next 10 years, so from 2020 to 2030, that our world would change so much that it would be like it was 100 years instead of 10 years. Okay, which is mind blowing. Okay. And then you think about it from the perspective that most of the change in our world has happened in the last 100 years. Okay. So it's 300 years from 2020 to 2030. Sorry, it would change as much as it has in 300 years. Okay.
Wow.
So if you consider that in the last 100 years is where most of that change came from, it is wild. It's just wild. And it's speeding up and it's speeding up. And now we're in the last half of that 10 years between now and 2030. So there's some really wild things going to happen. People are going to shift. People are going to wake up in unbelievable numbers. Okay. Even people that had no interest in the metaphysical, no interest in spirit, no interest in really developing themselves in that way are going to wake up. Some people are not going to wake up, period. They're just going to go on.
Yeah.
This is where that two earth kind of theory comes in. And it's not about physically two earths. It's about, again, we're going to circle right back to that dimensionality thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's really going to be separating people by vibration. For a while, there's going to be an interplay between those two vibrations. There's going to be basically higher vibrational people and lower vibrational people living in the same bubble, let's say. Okay?
Kind of clashing.
Kind of clashing. Yeah, this is where look at the polarization.
Yeah.
Okay? That's where that polarization is coming from. And then as we go along, that they're going to separate, and you're no longer, because you'll be at a totally different vibration. So they won't see us, we won't see them, because we'll be living in a totally if you look at the multi-universe or the multi-dimensional theory, it's like those Russian dolls. They're all nested within each other. Okay. So all the Earths are all actually taking the same space. They're just on different vibrational levels. So where you land vibrationally is the kind of life you're going to live. And it doesn't, and believe me, there's no judgment on this. It's really everybody's conscious choice. You're going to be given a conscious choice. And some people are going to make that choice to move ahead and to move up in vibration. Some people aren't. So that's what's really going to happen, especially over this next 5 years. And I think we're just going to stand back when we get to 2030 and go, oh my God, I can't believe how much. Because even look at now, if you stand here now in 2025, the end of 2025, and you look back to just 2019, just before COVID hit.
Yeah.
Look at how different the world is. Okay.
Very different.
So just imagine that on steroids, because every year that goes by, in case you hadn't noticed, okay, things keep happening faster and faster. And now look at the thing with AI, and look at with all these changes that we see happening in the sun. There's so much going on. It's mind blowing. That's why I talk with my clients a lot about that one of the most important things right now is doing whatever you need to do to stay grounded.
Yeah.
Because if you're not grounded, you're going to spin off. I know what it's like. I can't even remember what we used to call them. You remember those Ferris wheels that they used to have in the playground?
Oh, yeah.
And you ran around and you pushed them, and then you...
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember how
I don't even think they're allowed in playgrounds anymore.
No, they're
liability.
They're really dangerous.
Yeah.
But we used to have a lot of fun.
Yep.
But we get them going so fast that even when you jumped on, sometimes you get flung off and you'd be on the grass, right?
Yeah.
All scraped up because you got flung off. When I think of a good example, that's exactly what people are going to experience. They don't continue. It was like being grounded was optional before. Okay. It's really not optional anymore. And I don't care what you're doing. This is why being outside for most people out in nature is one of the most grounding things for most people. Okay. This is why I emphasize being outside is so important. And some times of year for some people are more difficult, but it's still very important. The other thing that's really grounding is you can actually do physical grounding exercises. Water is super grounding, like swimming. Yeah. Swimming in the ocean is probably the A+, but swimming in lakes, even I tell people, and they don't believe me, okay, until they try it. One of the greatest things you can do if you have a really hard day and you come home and you're really flustered and you feel really ungrounded, get in the shower. Have a shower. It's amazing because the water not only affects your physical body, it's also going through all your... God, I look like I have all these energy bodies with this thing. It also goes through and cleanses your energy bodies as well. So one of the most healing and grounding things you can do is literally jump in the shower.
Yeah. I tell people too, is go outside if you have a tree in your yard. Go outside, especially in the morning. Yeah, take your shoes off and stand barefoot in front of a tree and hug the tree or touch the tree. And just be there for a while. Breathing exercises and just close your eyes and just feel it. And it's wow.
Hugging trees is great too, because what that does is it brings it directly in line with your the front of your chakras. But actually standing up against and leaning back on a tree is really helpful too, because it hits your chakras from the back side. And people don't realize the front of your chakras, the energy represented is the present and the future, but your back chakras are all about the past. And one of the biggest things that's going on right now for people is letting go of all this. This is part of the evolvement process, is letting go of all that crap that we have from the past.
Yeah.
And it's not only the past, by the way, of this lifetime. It also represents the past of past lifetimes. Okay? Because a lot of things that we experience, or a lot of the things that are triggered in this lifetime, are actually from previous lifetimes. That's another thing that's really front and center for a lot of people, is we are not only clearing from this lifetime right now, in a super big way. We are clearing all kinds of past karma and past relationships and past lives. So that's why there's a huge energy of that coming off of us as well.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah.
Big stuff. Big stuff.
A lot. I tell you what,
but I always emphasize, even though these next few years, especially, I would even say up to probably 2037. They just slapped me with that one. It's going to be incredible. Like where we come out the other side of this is going to be, and what I was told is 2025 and 2026 are probably going to be two of the hardest years. As we move towards 2030, it's going to get easier and easier. So if you can basically make it through this year and next year, things are going to loosen up, and they're not going to be easy, but they're going to be easier. There's a lot of energy and a lot of things happening very quickly, in case you hadn't noticed, this year and next year. And I'm going to tell you, the last quarter of this year could get very messy.
Oh, yeah. I'm already feeling it. I can feel the vibration. It's buzzing. And it's just, I don't know, it feels like it's weird. It's like the amplitude is being turned up.
Huge.
And
huge.
Whoa. Oh my God. It's never been like this before. What the heck? I'm like, I got to walk away from this.
That's what I had to do, because if you're a highly sensitive person, you have to really step down. And I've done some things. I continue to do things to offset that, because everything's happening at once. There's a huge vibrational shift in the mass consciousness going on. There's a huge vibrational shift in the earth itself. There's a huge vibrational shift in the energy that's coming into our planet from the sun and from the cosmos.
Yeah.
And there's all these things, and there's huge shifts going on in cycles right now, massive shifts in major cycles, and they're all coalescing at the same time. That's why I'm saying 2025 and 2026 are really going to be trying for most of us.
Yeah.
So you really have, and I'm going to tell you, you heard it here, the next pandemic that we have is going to be a pandemic of mental illness. And you think the last pandemic was, this is not fear porn. This is just to get forewarned is forearmed. Okay, so if you understand what's happening, it's a lot easier to live through it. If you don't know what's going on, then it's really easy to get caught up in the fear porn. Okay.
Yeah.
What is coming, and it's already started, in case you haven't noticed, is mental illness. People are not being able to cope with all these things going on. Even people that were very salt of the earth, calm people are losing their shit.
Yeah.
And that's going to explode. And the unfortunate thing is there have been a lot of people who had previous mental health issues that were never treated properly.
Oh, yeah.
And that were simply medicated and stuff like that. There's a lot of that going on. And it's going to get really intense. It's going to get really intense, unfortunately.
I believe it. I see it. I see it. I call it out.
Just look, if you don't believe it, just look at how angry and impatient and totally, I don't even know what to call it. People are just angry, and they don't have any people cutting you off, people not letting you into traffic. And I'm not saying it's always happened, but I've never seen it happen to this degree. Like people road rage, people butting into lines, people slamming doors in your face.
Yeah, the simplest things people get triggered by.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had an experience a few weeks ago in a parking lot, which just blew me away, because I've had the same experience with very different results, probably at least 100 times in my life. This guy, I found out it was a guy. He parked, I'm not kidding you, like 2 inches from my driver's side door.
Whoa.
So there was no way to get into my car except going through the passenger side and climbing through. And I made this my standard joke, which I've done 100 times if I've done it once. I said, "Oh, it'd be nice if people learned how to park," and that's pretty much how I did it. And every other time I've ever said that, somebody said something to the effect of, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was in a rush. I didn't realize. Let me get out of your way." Something apologetic and taking responsibility for being a bit of an idiot, right?
Yeah.
This guy just glares at me, and the energy that was coming off him was unbelievable. And he said, "Shut your effing mouth."
Wow.
And I was so stunned. Okay. This was not a kid. This was not some nasty biker. This was a normal, I would say somewhere between 35 to 45 guy next door.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was not somebody you would expect to hear those words from. And it wasn't even so much the words, it was the energy.
The energy from
It was like attack. Like it was like I was happy that I was far enough away that I wasn't within reach. Because honestly, I'm not sure what he would have done if he'd been able to actually put his hands on me.
Jeez.
And I just went, wow, that was a signal to me that no more jokes, no more playing around with people, because you just never know what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
there's a little FYI for people. And it's horrible that we have to start thinking that way. But I really changed my whole way of how I would deal with people in public like that because of that incident. Like, it just blew me away.
Gee. Yeah, it is scary.
Now that's what I'm talking about, like how on edge people are. And probably 5 years ago, that guy would have never dreamed of saying or doing something.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
how come when I grew up, I mean, shooting the 70s. If that happened in the 70s or 80s, oh, he would have had his lights punched out in a second. Forget about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was bizarre. I've never quite experienced something like that, especially not from somebody like that.
Yeah.
Okay. There's always the bad apples that you have to watch. They've always existed. Okay. But this was
It just
not
seems
one
like
of
there's
them.
more of them.
This was not one of them. Like I said, this was not the type of person that you would have ever expected that kind of reaction from.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm talking about, this epidemic of mental illness, because what it comes down to is people simply not being able to control themselves, or like you said, being triggered by nothing at all, like things that you would never think twice about, and all of a sudden it becomes like a life and death situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we have to start looking at things, and it's terrible that we have to do that. But I really encourage people to be more cautious.
Yeah.
Because right now, you just don't know how somebody's going to react. And you know what? Even if it's somebody that you've known in the past, you can't be guaranteed that they're going to react the way that they have always reacted. And
paying attention to our own reactions too. I tell people this all the time. I was like, be apprehensive and be careful of your emotions. Don't react out of an emotion. Don't make business decisions out of an emotion. Just sit back, think it over. Don't do things right off the bat. Just wait.
Give yourself some time.
Yeah.
I always tell people to breathe before you blurt something out. Just go, and then think about if you really want to say that or not.
Yeah.
Because you never know what kind of reaction you're going to get.
Yeah. Before we wrap up the show, for those who are watching can see it scrolling down on the bottom, but for those who are listening, where can they find you and what they can expect when they go to your website?
My website is www.spiritspeaks2.me. You can find out information about me and the different services that I offer. I'm a spiritual coach, so I basically say that I help people make their lives work. I help them find clarity, direction, peace of mind. That's through my spiritual counseling, and I also am an intuitive coach. So I help people work through transitions, and there's so many people going through all kinds of transitions right now, whether it be jobs, whether it be divorce, whether it be grieving a passing of a loved one. I do all those things. I'm also a medium. So I also help through my mediumship work. I also help people dealing with grief. I'm all over Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on X, Twitter. Yeah. LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn too. I'm pretty visible and my name is pretty, there's not a lot of us around, so it's pretty easy to find me.
Right on. Cool, cool.
And I know Paul's going to have all this in the show notes.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And before we wrap up, what do you have to offer as a takeaway, some words of wisdom for our audience today?
I would just say that probably the most important thing right now is to be very patient with yourself, and to be very patient with others, because everybody is going through some kind of real heavy transition or challenge right now, and you don't know what people are going through. So just assume that they're going through something and kind of act from there is probably the best way, because even if people aren't showing it on the outside, it doesn't mean they're not really hurting or having a really difficult time on the inside.
Yeah, that type of pain is not visible. People hide it very well. Yeah.
So remember our compassion, folks, because that's the word I was looking for earlier. If I think people have become super short on compassion these days, and I think we all need to get back to our own compassion for ourselves and our compassion for others, because I think a lot of people have lost compassion for themselves as well.
Yeah, yeah, and respect for themselves.
Yeah. That's part of compassion, I think.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Laura, blessings, my friend. Namaste, my friend.
Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. Very welcome. Very powerful. Definitely. And for those out there, definitely go look for Laura at Spirit Speaks 2, the number 2.me. Yeah. And until next time, thank you for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Seance Podcast. We will see you next week.